Good morning, friends, and welcome to the Bellingham Unitarian Fellowship, also known as BUFF. When I found that out, it made me so happy, by the way, and I just envisioned y'all going like, we are BUFF. My name is Heather Vickery, and I am the coordinator for congregational activism at your UU Service Committee, as well as an aspirant for UU Ministry. And I'm delighted to be here with you all guest preaching today, and want to especially thank Deb, Genia, and Rev Paul, who made this all happen. At my home church in First Parish, Malden, Massachusetts, we like to start our services by saying that we here aren't perfect, and we don't expect you to be either. Instead, we strive for authenticity and connection. So no matter who you are, where you are from, if you're tired this morning or energized, new or a longtime member, you are welcome here. Now, let us worship together.
Good morning, I'm Reverend Paul Beckel. Thank you for being here today. Those of you on Zoom, whether you're from Bellingham or perhaps visiting from Malden, Massachusetts with Heather, we're very glad to have you here. The chalice we light today is a symbol of our faith tradition. It binds us together as one people all around the world as we light these chalices. It's a reminder of our strength, that strength in our shared hope for the world, and that our common work is the creation of beloved community among ourselves and people throughout the world. You'll notice that Heather lit two chalices there because we bring this where we go. The little blue one is the children's chalice, and for years Genia has been, when the kids go up to their classrooms, they carry that flame along with them up to their classrooms. Sometimes they do a little milestones ritual, or they do other type of check-in rituals, but it's always in connection with us as we are connected beyond here. So please say together with me our covenant. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service gives it life. Celebrating our diversity and joined by a quest for truth, We work for peace and honor all creation. This is our covenant.
We are going to sing a song in Spanish in our Teal hymn book, 1004, Busca el amor. And I'd like to practice the chorus just a little bit because it's in Spanish. Busca el amor en ti. Busca el amor en ti, which means look for the love in you. Busca el amor en ti. So when you see that coming, you can always catch those first syllables. Let's try it again. Busca el amor en ti. Then there might be some more Spanish, but at least get busca el amor en ti. The first two verses are totally in Spanish. There's an English translation at the very end, which you can look at if you want to know what I'm singing about. I'll do the verses, and then please join me on the chorus. But the first time on the chorus, let's just do it in English. So first time chorus English, I'll point to you. Second time Spanish. Here we go. Revisa tu corazón para echarle el amor en un rincón. Pero busca el amor, mi placer, mi pasión, el amor. Lo que hace al otro bien. Seek out the love in you and find the joy that comes to those who care. Seek out the love in you. It only grows wherever it is shared. Seek out the love in you and find the joy that comes to those who care. Seek out the love in you. It only grows wherever it is shared. Seek out the love in Registra tu camaleón cuando cambia el color del corazón y te estalla la flor, un pétalo del sol, el amor. Lo que hace al otro bien. Busca el amor en ti. Se multiplica si lo repartís. Busca el amor en ti. Solo el que ama puede ser feliz. Busca el amor en ti. Se multiplica si lo repartís. Busca el amor en ti. Solo el que ama puede ser feliz. Busca el amor en ti. Buen hecho, gracias.
I have a story that I would like to tell you all. This comes from a compilation of stories called the Jataka Tales, which are from a Buddhist background and come from India. And it is called The Parrot and the Eagles. So once, long, long ago, there was a little green parrot. And it lived in a beautiful forest up in the trees. And it loved to adventure through the trees, flying around, looking down. It would sometimes go down and say hi to its friend, the anteater. And over up here, the sloth. You'd have to tap on the sloth a few times to wake him up and said, "Hi, sloth." And then he'd go around and he'd see the deer and the monkeys. The little green parrot would have some fruit off the trees and sometimes go way above the trees and look down, and it could see the mountains that were all the way around the valley. Beautiful mountains, Rocky Mountains with eagles. And then look down and see this blue silken ribbon of a river. And the little green parrot just loved where he lived and hoped to stay there forever. But one day, the parrot took a nap and woke up, and there was smoke all around his nest. And he didn't know what was going on. He flew out of the nest to get out of the smoke. And looking down, he saw that his tree was on fire. Even the tree next to it was starting to catch fire. And he was so scared, and he flew above the tree, and he was looking around, didn't know what to do. All of a sudden, he heard a voice. There was an eagle flying around next to him, looking down, saying, "Oh, that was such a nice forest. This is really sad to see it go." And the little green parrot said, "What do you mean? We can't just let it go." "Well, I don't know what you're going to do about it." And the parrot flew around thinking, and then he had an idea. The little parrot went down to that big blue river, and splashed in the river, flew back up, and it was all wet, of course, and it wiggled his wings and dropped a little water on the tree and went tiss. And of course, that wasn't enough, and so the parrot did it again. Dive, splash, fly. Dive, splash, fly. Dive, splash, fly. He was getting a little tired. I'm sure you're getting a little tired of it. They're just, And another eagle came to watch this, and then second eagle said, "Wow, come on, that's never going to work. What are you doing?" And the little parrot said, "I know, it's really hard by myself, but maybe we could work together." And the eagles just kind of shrugged their wings. The funny thing about this is the eagles had huge wings. The parrot was only this big. The eagles had huge wings. Imagine how much water they could carry. The parrot said, "Oh, well, I'm going to keep going." He went dive, splash, fly. And then another eagle came flying by from the mountains. Didn't even talk to him. He just did what needed to be done. Splash, because the eagles, they splash down in the water all the time. That's where they catch their fish. They knew what to do. He went splash, and he came up with a little green parrot. And together they went and there was a lot more because that eagle had a lot of water on its wings. And then another eagle came by, and then another, and they splashed and they dove, and together, even though the fire had started to spread, they kept going and going and going all day long. Dive, splash, fly, psst. It was a lot of work, even into the evening, before they were able to turn out the fire. And then they said to each other, "I'm so glad that we had each other, because together we were able to save the forest." And that's the end of our story for today, and we'll sing to you as you go off to your classrooms. We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go to nurture the spark of your precious life. We hold you in our love as you go. Go ahead. We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go to nurture the spark of your precious life. We hold you in our love as you go.
My friends, It is so good to see you again. I am Grandmother Harvest, and I bring greetings from my beautiful little country, the bountiful United Federation. We call it the Buff. And it is very far away, and it is very wonderful, like your own Buff. And many years ago, some of you older people remember we had a terrible problem in our country because we had a dragon, and it was the dragon of not enough funds. And we called it the dragon of Neff. And it flew about our country, and it burned things up, and it destroyed our people. It was a terrible, terrible dragon. And we worked together, and we defeated it, and we banished it. It was wonderful. But my friends, the dragon of Neff is back. And it has placed a spell on us. And it is so terrible because our wise women call this spell the post-COVID reintegration disturbance syndrome. And it is terrible, my friends. It is so terrible because our information providers, in our language, we call them canvassers. They contact people, but the message, my friends, it goes to voicemail. And we do not see it because of the spell and because our phones are so full of voicemails. And we do not see the emails because our phones are so full of the emails. It is a terrible spell, my friends. And everyone has, because we don't respond because we have that thing called information overload. And everyone has this thing called a busy schedule. And so we cannot receive our pledge cards because our schedule is so busy. And so we cannot complete our pledge, and we cannot fight the dragon of Neff, my friends. And it is so, so terrible a thing. So please, my friends, help us, because you are wise and good, and you can control the cell phones and the voicemail, and you are Buff, and we are Buff. So you can help us break this spell. So please, check your own voicemail and respond to your canvasser. And if you have not received a pledge card, possibly because I am your canvasser and I haven't contacted you yet, please call the office, because even canvassers are not immune from this terrible spell. I'm so sorry. And your magic, my friends, will break the spell, and Buff will be so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Grandmother. This makes it very difficult to follow, you know. When you came in this morning, you were handed this blue poll. It has 2 whole questions on it, so it shouldn't be too difficult. We've started a new adult religious education committee. We are hoping to expand Buff's offerings in adult religious exploration, and we need your help. We need you to let us know what kinds of classes you might like to attend. It's a very simple poll. When you finish filling it out, you can put it in the plate as it's passed during the service, or you can drop it in a basket just outside the door. Or if you really want to talk with us, come on down, fill it out downstairs at the coffee hour. There'll be some of us sitting at a table, and we can answer your questions and take your poll at the same time. For those of you on Zoom, hopefully the link to the poll will be listed on the chat room on Zoom. And also on your midweek update this Wednesday, there will be a link to the poll. So for those people who weren't able to turn this in today, you can do it. It needs to be turned in by the 31st, so that's Friday. So thank you very much. We hope we can get a really good religious exploration program going. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie, and thank you, Lee. Just want to call your attention to a few announcements on the back of your order of service. Really great things coming ahead. We have an Easter potluck for all over at Lake Padden on Easter, April 9th. That's 2 Sundays from now. We've got a budget update meeting coming this Tuesday evening, all on Zoom to make it easy. And every Wednesday evening at 6, we have Buff Night In, soup and salad meal, and chance to continue to get to know each other. Just one more announcement. Buff, every chance we get, we try to participate in collective interfaith type action. Well, this is a really simple, straightforward one. Won't take long at all to pray together for. So Julie Montag from Maple Falls disappeared in the woods out there 2 weeks ago and has not been seen. And so her church is getting together at Maritime Heritage Park today at 3, and they just want to have a larger community. Regardless of your sense of the meaning of that, please find the meaning in solidarity with our neighbors. And let me know if you'd like any more information. I'll be around after the service.
Good morning again, friends. I'm so grateful to be here with you all this morning. Thank you for all the ways you're living our Unitarian Universalist values in the world. The world needs those values right now more than ever. For so many of us, these last few years seem to be an endless litany of one crisis after another. Climate-forced displacement, armed violence, assaults on human rights, a deadly global pandemic, and on and on. As we continue to grapple with these events, we must remember that going back to business as usual is not an option. Not if we seek to live up to the values we espouse and create a world in which everyone's needs are met. A world that we call beloved community. This is a world built on love, a liberatory love, the kind of love that allows us to stay in the struggle until everyone is welcome, everyone is whole, everyone is free. This is what we are being called to now, in so many ways, co-creating a beloved community that looks to partners, not saviors, that looks to justice, not the status quo, a community that reaches towards life, not harmful ideology. Dr. Cornel West reminds us that justice is what love looks like in public, and justice is central to the beloved community. Justice as conceived of in much of American society is thought as something separate from us, an impartial system, perhaps, or an objective ideal that somehow resides outside of human bonds. In reality, though, relationship is at the core of justice. Justice is co-created between people and between communities. This means that justice is foundational to forming beloved community. This idea is also found in the words of Australian Indigenous activist Lila Watson when she says, "If you've come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together." Author Rachel Nomi Remen describes justice work as being in service of wholeness. I love that phrase, being in service of wholeness. You all have been in service of wholeness as you've welcomed and supported Syrian refugees. Did you know that? By taking that leap of faith and recognizing the humanity of strangers impacted by systems of oppression, you've created the beloved community right here amongst you in Bellingham. Yesterday, I got to hear a little bit more about this amazing work that you're doing every day in service of wholeness, whether it's fundraising, connecting folks with lawyers, giving feedback to lawyers, or getting everyone in the family a working bike. The Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, or UUSC, is also part of this journey, one that has shifted our work from charity to justice, from depending on a few key leaders to centering grassroots partnership and leaderful movements. Founded in 1940, in response to the rise of fascism in Europe, USC began as a mission by a Unitarian minister and his wife, Waitzel and Martha Sharp, who traveled to Prague in order to do what they could to get as many Jews and political dissidents being targeted by the Nazis to safety. As the years went on, the Unitarian Service Committee, which would later become the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, expanded its global work, sending aid to places around the world facing humanitarian crisis. Over time, our human rights work began to focus on more systemic justice issues, shifting to a model of partnership with grassroots organizations led by those most affected by injustice. Today, our work focuses on climate-forced displacement, crisis response, and Central American migrant justice. While these initiatives might seem unrelated at first glance, they are at their core all interconnected. These issues are about the right to security within our homes, the right to restore our homes when they are ravaged by natural or human-made disasters, and the right to seek new homes elsewhere when necessary. It is that last right, the human right to migrate, the right to seek asylum, that inspired the UUSC program called the Congregational Accompaniment Project for Asylum Seekers, that not only matches congregations with asylum seekers who need sponsors, but also supports those groups like you all here at Buff that are doing the critical work of welcoming refugees as well. I'm excited to continue talking with you all about that work and supporting you in other ways. Because although asylum seekers and refugees have different pathways through our immigration system, both groups are created by the same unjust systems and face similar issues. This collaborative accompaniment program, also shortened to CAPAS, because as you use, we always have to shorten things, is a profound way to journey with and shelter people who are somewhere within the asylum and refugee process. Anti-immigration rhetoric, cruel enforcement policies, and the near complete dismantling of the US asylum process has been escalating in recent years, but is in no way a new phenomenon. A new federal administration does not automatically mean that things will improve for those attempting to migrate. We see this with the current administration's proposed transit ban that brings back one of the Trump administration's most harmful policies. We see it in the uncertainty that many refugees constantly face within the US, never knowing if their status will be renewed or transformed, or if they'll be forced to go back to unsafe and dangerous countries. We see it in the way our systems make working and living complex for our migrant neighbors, and so much more. Within this context of immigration injustice in our country, many people both within and beyond migrant communities have looked for new ways to change this system. All over the country, neighbors and friends, including you all, have created networks to accompany migrants to immigration hearings, legal appointments, medical appointments, and check-ins with ICE. They offer emotional care and comfort in times of stress and fear, provide a ride or translation services or advocacy before a judge, meet migrants in transition at bus stations with supplies for their journey, and help them find secure housing and work. In all forms, accompaniment is an invitation to witness, to listen, and to show up. It is a practice of being human together in the face of extremely dehumanizing systems and circumstances. For those of us who are not directly targeted by ICE and these systems, accompaniment brings us closer to the violence of our immigration system and the wider world, creating opportunities to build relationships with those who are most impacted. As a result, many people who engage in accompaniment work become deeply transformed and grow more committed to disrupting these harmful systems and acting for a more liberated future for all. Being in solidarity with and sharing resources with someone is a tangible way to say yes to justice, yes to community, yes to that which affirms life. This is one of the countless ways we become the beloved community even as we seek to create it. We each have a role to play in its creation, each of us bringing our broken, growing selves in service to wholeness. Recognizing that your liberation is bound up in mine, and that no one is free until everyone is free.
Thank you, Heather. I'm going to present the entire history of immigration to Whatcom County in about 6 minutes and singing in 6 different languages. Coast Salish people lived in what we now call Whatcom County since before recorded history, and they thrive here still today, both on and off reservations, in spite of waves of immigration into their homelands. Europeans, or Bostons, as the Coast Salish called them, began settling here in the early 1800s. By 1855, those Europeans had amassed enough power that they could force the indigenous people into reservations as demarcated by the Point Elliott Treaty. Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam, and the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. In 1885, civic leaders forced out all Chinese residents through threats, boycotts, and by insisting that the immigrants were taking jobs from whites. As anti-Chinese activities escalated, rioters burned and looted their homes and businesses. Many immigrants were beaten, some killed. 跑马悠悠的山上，一朵悠悠的正月，暖暖悠悠的脚踩，康定溜溜的正月，有两弯弯。康定溜溜的正月。Around 1900, immigrants from India, mostly Sikhs from the Punjab, came to work in lumber mills where they did the most dangerous work for the lowest pay. However, fear and prejudice, combined with economic competition, fed resentment. Mobs forced out the entire Indian community in 1907. Sonna, sonna, mera sonna, 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 mai sonna. Sonna, sonna, mai sonna, 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 mai sonna. मिल गया मुझे मिल गया रहमतों करंग यार गया मिल गया मुझे मिल गया रहमतों करंग गया. During World War II, residents of Japanese ancestry, including American-born citizens, were rounded up and imprisoned in camps. After the war, they continued to face hostility and financial roadblocks. As of now, not one person from any of the 33 Japanese-American families who were forced out in 1942 has ever returned to live here. Sakura, sakura, 弥生の空は見渡す限り霞か雲か匂いぞいずるいざやいざや見にゆかん Since the 1860s, local industry has sought cheap labor for difficult and often seasonal work. Immigrant groups employed here have been denied citizenship, civil rights, and integration into the community. Farm workers are the latest to experience this exploitation. In 2018, ICE agents arrested 16 Latinx farm workers while they were working on Whatcom County farms and sent them to the notorious Northwest Detention Center in Tacoma. Señores, que estos son, señores de Chuchumbe, bonita su entonación, bonito se oye, se ve, te vaya bien o mal, el Chuchumbe te ha de alcanzar, te vaya bien o mal, el Chuchumbe te ha de alcanzar. On a more hopeful note, many members of BUF have recently welcomed immigrant families from Syria and the Sudan. I trust that these most recent migrants to Whatcom County are facing a brighter future than what all the immigrants before them faced. Ya Ghazali kaifa hanni abwaduh shattatu shamli rahajri awaduh Ya Zakhali kaifa hanni abwaduh shattatu shamli rahajri awaduk. Haishka. Thank you. 谢谢 Danayavara. Arigato. Gracias. Shukran.
Wow. Community that is in service of wholeness is leaderful, joy-filled, imperfect, challenging, and flexible. It is life reaching towards life. But before we can build that community, we have to be able to imagine it. Activist and author Adrienne Marie Brown reminds us that if we are not organized towards what we really want and what we long for, we will always settle for just reacting and trying to stop something bad from happening. We have a lot of examples of the bad. How do we get a vision for what we want? I think most of us resonate with this feeling of always needing to react against something harmful. It's really easy to look at something like our current and past immigration system and say, that is wrong, that is bad, I don't like that. And I bet you also can understand how frustrating and demoralizing that can be because there are so many oppressive systems in our world that it can feel overwhelming and unchangeable. If we want to do our justice work more effectively and faithfully, we have to have a vision for the world we want, not just the world we don't want. And so that's what I want to do with you today, to start imagining and feeling what it means to actually be in service of wholeness, to be in the beloved community. So I invite you into a brief visioning practice with me. I ask that you settle your body into a comfortable position. Maybe that means grounding your feet to the floor like the roots of a great oak tree. Maybe that means relaxing your head and letting your chin dip down a bit so that your brain is closer to your heart. Maybe that means leaning your head back as if you really are in the clouds, as they say. Maybe it's something completely different. That's okay. If you're comfortable doing so, close your eyes or soften your gaze. Take a deep breath in. And as you release the breath, notice your muscles. Are they clenched from worry? Sore from transporting bikes across town? Stiff for some other reason? Take another deep breath in. And as you release the breath, try to relax just a little. Keep breathing. Now, in this more relaxed state, imagine we have made it. We are in the beloved community where there is no war and no poverty, no borders and no prisons. Bring yourself into that future time when we have arrived and we are together and we are whole. Notice all of your senses that are being activated. They may be different for each of us. What do you see in your mind's eye? What do you hear? Can you smell something? Does a taste come to mind? How does it feel? Look around in this future. Who's there with you? What are we doing together? Take another deep breath in as you continue to notice. And slowly breathe out. As we gently allow ourselves to come back to the present, take a moment to notice how your time in that future made you feel. Did something stick with you particularly? A sound, an image? Let that be your touchstone. My colleague and friend Angela Kelly taught me that practice, and it has had a profound impact on not just my mental health and my ability to stay in this work for the long haul, but also on how I do the work right now. I'm sure you know as well as I do that it's a lot easier being the person you want to be when you're filled with peace and possibility rather than frustration and fear. You see, when I imagine the beloved community, what I experience is a true community meal. Food plays a large part in my life. I love to feed people. I love to try new foods, and I love to connect with people over meals. This is a general trait in my family. We often return from vacations and spend the first hour of describing said vacation just talking about the food we've eaten. So it makes sense that this is what I imagine. And as I'm brought back to that place, that beloved meal, I know that the food We are sharing tastes like the joy of knowing that no one is hungry. That the laughter I hear sounds like true liberation, a type of laughter that can only be heard when no one is behind bars. And the people I am with feel like home because I know everyone else in the world has shelter. Just talking about it now, every time I do this, it fills me with a sense of peace and brings some tears to my eyes because I miss that world. I long for it, even though I've never physically been there. So when I'm struggling with all the injustices in the world and feeling overwhelmed and like I have to respond to all of them or feeling like nothing I do can ever make a real difference, I go back to that place. I let it wash over me. I hear the cutlery hitting the plates. I hear the laughter. I taste the food. And I ask myself, what gets me closer to that? How am I different when I am in service to wholeness? And what can I do right now to start living that way before I'm even there? What is my work to do, the work that combines my passions and my skills, and that gets us all closer to liberation? By keeping that vision close at hand, I know that whatever direction I decide to go in, it will get me to the same place, and that all the trials and tribulations along the way will be more than worth it. So now I ask you, how will you get to your vision as individuals and as a community? How can you continue to be in service of wholeness like you have by welcoming families from Syria and from Sudan, from doing all the work that you've been doing? What does that look like? And what would the world look like if we all joined together to do that work? Thank you again for joining in this visioning experience and for coming today and hopefully talking to me in coffee hour, and for all you're doing and all of who you are. I am so very excited to see how we can practice living together in the world we long for right now, right here. Amen, Ashe, and let it be so.
Thank you, Heather. You have given me some insights. I really never had thought it before. In the first part of your sermon, when you said, sometimes we think about the justice system as something separate. I mean, I know intellectually I probably even preached about how integrated everything is, how we are one and what we do is part of the system. Still, I realize that a part of me still does think of the justice system as that other thing over there that I have nothing to do with. Not that I think it's neutral and objective, but still, sometimes I allow myself to be outside of that, and that's naive and probably harmful. I also want to thank you for Heather was here in the Pacific Northwest because she was workshopping with the congregations around the Pacific Northwest, part of the Justice Washington organization, which we took a collection for last week. So I appreciate your sense of this is a national, this is a regional, but that you also, even though you're spreading this word everywhere, you also got to know who we are and the work that we've been doing. It made me think about the proactive versus reactive thing, and how sometimes, I mean, with both of them being really important, how the helping with the refugee families has, even though is reactive to their situation, you also brought up the joy and the positive thing, because I heard from the team this week that we're getting bikes for all the kids and the adults in the Syrian families, and the joy that they had on that simple thing. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. And then finally, we have the opportunity, as always, to just make sure that we are here when there is a situation to respond to, that we can do the proactive stuff, but there has to be organizations, strong institutions right here when something comes up, like when Kevin mentioned the ICE raid. And thank you, Kevin. That was so local and, wow, profound. When he mentioned the ICE raid of 2018, Buff had a reputation as this was a place to go where we could work through that and support those 17 families. And we raised over $100,000 from within, but more importantly, we pulled in allies from around the county to help with that so that the refugee families could have legal support and bail money, as well as just food, shelter, and clothing for the families. And so I want to thank you for all of the different ways that you bring life within and beyond these walls, through your music, through your smiles, through your kindness, through your forgiveness, through your financial generosity, and all the ways that you reach out to one another. Thank you. And I invite the ushers forward to receive this morning's collection to keep Buff healthy and strong. And those of you on Zoom, there will be a card up on your screen that describes how you can give electronically. Thank you.
Let's rise in body or spirit and sing hymn 1017 in the Teal book. Building a New Way, 1017.
So I'll leave you with this benediction by Darcy Roque called Each of Us Ministers to a Weary World. There's too much hardship in this world to not find joy every day. There's too much injustice in this world to not right the balance every day. There's too much pain in this world to not heal every day. Each of us ministers to a weary world. Let us go forth now and do that which calls us to make this world more loving, more compassionate, and more filled with the grace of divine presence every day.
Let's join together to circle around for freedom. Make a little circle in the middle and a bigger one out there. Make sure everybody's a part of it, whether they want to hold hands or not.